I never screamed. I never fought back. But when my daughter-in-law raised her hand in front of everyone, time stopped. The slap echoed through the room, louder than the music, louder than my heartbeat. At 62 years old, I stood frozen, not because of the pain, but because every woman in that room was watching. She stepped closer, her face calm, almost proud. Then she whispered words that shattered my soul. "Give me your house keys. You don't belong there anymore." I looked around. Sisters, aunts, relatives, women I had fed, helped, protected for years. Some gasped. Some looked away. Some pretended not to see. Just minutes earlier, the room was full of laughter. A family gathering of women's smiles, gossip, shared memories. I had come with a soft heart. No arguments, no demands. I was the one who welcomed her into our family. The one who defended her when others judged. The one who gave her a home when she had nowhere else to go. That house she demanded wasn't just property. It was where I spent my lonely nights. Where I cried after my husband's death. Where I prayed for peace in this family. My cheek burned, but my chest felt heavier. Because suddenly, everything made sense. The cold looks, the disrespect, the distance. This slap wasn't anger. It was planned. She wanted power, control, my silence. And as I stood there, surrounded by women who chose comfort over truth, I made a quiet decision. I would stay silent, for now, because sometimes the strongest woman is the one who waits. And she had no idea what her slap had just awakened in me. No one spoke after the slap. The room, once full of laughter, felt heavy, like the air itself was judging me. Every woman stood still, unsure whether to comfort me or protect herself. I lowered my eyes, not in shame but to hide the storm growing inside me. My daughter-in-law walked away as if nothing had happened. Her bangles clinked softly, each sound mocking my silence. I could feel their whispers even before they started. She must have done something. Why didn't she stop her? She's old. What can she do now? I walked toward the corner of the room, my steps slow, my heart racing. At 62, I had learned to survive without making noise. A woman I once helped reached out to me. Then she pulled her hand back. Fear. That hurt more than the slap. I remembered the day my daughter-in-law first entered my home. Nervous, quiet, eyes lowered. I had held her hands and said, "This house is yours too." Today, those same walls had turned against me. The house she demanded was the only place where I still felt alive, where my memories breathed, where my dignity slept peacefully until today. As I stood alone, I realized something painful. She wasn't acting alone. The sudden confidence, the public humiliation, the demand, someone had filled her with courage, or poison. I wiped my tears before anyone could see them fall. Not because I was weak, but because I was thinking, if she wanted a war, she wouldn't get it with screams. She would get it with silence. And silence, when chosen carefully, can be terrifying. That night, I didn't sleep, because I knew this was only the beginning. That night, when the house finally went quiet, I sat alone on the edge of my bed. Every corner of that home whispered my past. I remembered the day my daughter-in-law came to us. A young woman with nervous eyes and trembling hands. Everyone had opinions. She won't adjust. She's too modern. She won't respect elders. I stood in front of them all. She's family now, I said, and family doesn't come with conditions. I gave her my room and moved into the smaller one near the kitchen. I cooked her favorite meals before she even learned my habits. When she cried in the middle of the night, it was my door she knocked on. At 62, I had already lived a full life, or so I thought. I sold my jewelry quietly to help them start their business. When it failed, I didn't ask questions. I protected her reputation when neighbors whispered. Only women knew what it cost me. The loneliness, the sacrifices no one applauds. As I ran my fingers over the old photo frames, I wondered when love had turned into entitlement. When support became expectation. I had never asked for respect loudly. I believed kindness was enough. But kindness, when taken for granted, becomes invisible. From the next room, I heard her laughter on the phone. Carefree, confident. That sound hurt more than insults. Because it told me one thing clearly. She had forgotten who stood by her when she had nothing. And in forgetting that, she had made the biggest mistake of her life. I lay down, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, I stopped blaming myself. And in that silence, a new strength began to grow. The house had never been just a house to me. It was where I learned to survive as a woman with responsibilities no one saw. Every wall held a memory. Every corner carried my prayers. Years ago, when my daughter-in-law stood in front of me with tears in her eyes, she said, "Where will we go?" I didn't hesitate. "This is your home," I replied. I remember the women around us nodding in approval. They praised my generosity, called me kind, called me strong. No one asked what it cost me. I moved my belongings into the smallest room. I gave them the master bedroom, the one I had decorated with my own hands. I paid the bills without reminders. Electricity, water, property tax. When she wanted changes, I agreed. New curtains, new furniture, new rules. Slowly, the house stopped feeling like mine. At 62, I found myself asking permission to sit in my own living room. One afternoon, I overheard her talking to another woman. "She has no one." She laughed softly. "She won't say anything." That sentence stayed with me. Because she was right. I stayed silent. I adjusted. I convinced myself this was love. But love should never erase you. Standing alone that night, I realized something terrifying. By giving them my home, I had given away my power. And now, she wanted more. She didn't want shared space. She wanted ownership, control. And as I touched the cold walls that once protected me, I understood the truth I had avoided for too long. This wasn't family anymore. It was a takeover. The house had learned to speak in whispers, not openly, not bravely, but behind closed doors where truth hides when fear takes over. I noticed it first in the kitchen. Women stopped talking when I entered. Smiles appeared too quickly. Eyes avoided mine. At 62, you don't need explanations. You can feel betrayal before it shows its face. One evening, as I passed by the guest room, I heard my daughter-in-law's voice. Low, confident. "She's old," she said. "She won't fight. This house should be mine." Everyone agrees. Another woman laughed softly. That laugh hurt more than anger ever could. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart pounding, realizing I was no longer the topic of concern. I was the obstacle. Later that night, a relative pulled me aside. "Stay quiet," she whispered. "Don't make things worse." She's building support. Support for taking my home. I looked at the faces around me. Women I had helped during illness, poverty, heartbreak. Now they were choosing sides. Not because she was right, but because she was loud. Power, I learned, doesn't belong to the kind. It belongs to the confident. That night, I locked my door and cried silently. Not because I was losing my house, but because I was losing people. And then something shifted inside me. If they were planning in secret, so could I. I began to remember things I had ignored. Documents, conversations, promises made long ago. She thought whispers made her strong. She forgot one thing. I built this house. I knew every corner. And secrets don't stay hidden forever, especially in a home that remembers everything. She didn't shout this time. She waited until the house was quiet, until only women remained, until there were no witnesses who would interrupt. She sat across from me at the dining table, calm and prepared. Her confidence wasn't sudden. It was practiced. "I've been thinking," my daughter-in-law said, folding her hands. "This arrangement isn't working anymore." I listened. I had always listened. "This house should be in my name," she continued. "For stability, for the future." I stared at her, searching for hesitation. There was none. At 62, I had faced many storms, but nothing prepares you for entitlement dressed as logic. Another woman cleared her throat. "She's right," she said softly. "It's practical. Practical. To erase me." My hands trembled, but my voice remained steady. "And where do I go?" I asked. She smiled. "You can stay here," she replied. "In the small room, like now," as if she were offering me kindness. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. I realized she didn't see me as family, or even as a woman with dignity. I was furniture, old, replaceable. The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument. Every woman in that room avoided my eyes, because agreement doesn't need words, only cowardice. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping the floor. "I need time," I said. She nodded, already certain of her victory. But as I walked away, one truth burned clearly in my chest. This wasn't a request. It was a declaration of war, and she had no idea that I still held the strongest weapon of all, the truth. After that conversation, the house changed, not in noise, but in distance. Doors closed more often. Conversations stopped when I entered. Even the walls felt colder. At 62, loneliness feels different. It doesn't scream. It settles quietly beside you. I stopped being invited to sit with them. Meals were taken without asking. Decisions were made without my name. Once, I overheard a woman say, "She'll agree eventually." That sentence told me everything. They weren't waiting for my choice. They were waiting for my exhaustion. I went to the small room that had become mine, the one with the narrow window and the creaking bed. I sat there, staring at my hands. These hands had cooked for everyone, worked silently, given without counting, and now they were expected to sign everything away. I took out an old wooden box from under the bed. Inside were papers folded, yellowed, forgotten, property documents, letters, receipts, things I had saved without knowing why. Maybe some part of me had always known this day would come. As I held those papers, my heartbeat slowed. For the first time in days, I wasn't afraid, because power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits, and I had waited long enough. That night, I made a decision. I would not beg. I would not argue. I would not explain. I would let them believe I was weak. Because when people underestimate you, they reveal everything. And soon, they would reveal too much. The papers felt heavier than they looked, not because of their weight, but because of what they carried. Proof. I spread them slowly on the bed. Receipts, old agreements, a handwritten letter folded carefully at the bottom. My hands trembled as I read it again. The house was never transferred. Not legally. Not fully. Every payment, every tax, every signature. Mine. At 62, I smiled for the first time in weeks. Not with happiness, but with clarity. They hadn't just underestimated me. They had forgotten who built everything. I remembered the day I was advised to change the ownership. A woman had warned me gently, "Don't rush. Keep things safe." I had listened. Love makes you generous. Wisdom makes you careful. From the hallway, I heard laughter again. Confident, careless. She was celebrating too early. That evening, my daughter-in-law came to my door. Her voice was softer now. "We should talk," she said. I looked at her calmly. "Tomorrow," I replied. She hesitated. For the first time, I saw doubt in her eyes. Because power shifts quietly when truth enters the room. That night, I placed the documents back into the box. Not to hide them, but to protect the moment. Timing matters. And soon, every woman in that house would learn one lesson. Silence does not mean surrender. Sometimes, it means preparation. The gathering was planned in a hurry. Tea, snacks, smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Only women were invited. I knew why. She wanted witnesses, not for truth, but for pressure. My daughter-in-law sat at the center, confident as ever. Her voice was sweet, rehearsed. "We need to talk about the house," she announced. Every eye turned toward me. At 62, I walked into the room slowly, not afraid, prepared. Women shifted in their seats. Some avoided my gaze. Some watched closely. She continued, "We all agree this arrangement isn't fair anymore." Agreement, without my consent. I placed my purse on the table. "Before we agree," I said calmly, "let's remember something." The room stilled. She smiled politely, as if indulging me. I opened my bag and felt the edges of the documents inside. Not yet. Not now. Because truth is strongest when people reveal themselves first. A woman spoke up. "She's done so much for you," she said to my daughter-in-law. "You deserve security." Security, at my cost. I looked around the room. These walls heard everything. I said quietly, "Sacrifice. Promises. Respect." Silence followed. Her smile tightened. For the first time, her confidence cracked. She interrupted, "Let's not be emotional." Emotion, the word used to dismiss pain. I nodded slowly. "You're right," I said. "Let's be factual." The air changed. Because facts don't take sides. They expose them. And every woman in that room felt it. The masks were slipping. The room was quiet enough to hear breathing. I reached into my purse slowly. No drama, no anger, just truth. One by one, I placed the papers on the table. Receipts, property records, tax documents. Every woman leaned forward. My daughter-in-law's smile vanished. "This house," I said calmly, was never transferred. Her eyes widened. All payments, I continued, were made by me. Every year, every bill. A murmur spread across the room. She can't be serious, someone whispered. I took out the last paper, the one she never expected. A handwritten agreement. Silence turned heavy. I looked at my daughter-in-law. You asked for facts, I said. Here they are. For the first time since the slap. She had nothing to say. Her confidence collapsed quietly. Women exchanged glances, some shocked, some ashamed. One spoke carefully. We didn't know. I nodded. You didn't ask. Truth doesn't shout. It waits. My daughter-in-law stood up abruptly. This isn't over, she said, her voice shaking. I met her eyes. It is, I replied softly. For me. I gathered the papers back into my purse. At 62, I wasn't reclaiming a house. I was reclaiming myself. And in that moment, every woman in that room understood one thing. Silence can protect lies, or it can destroy them. I had chosen the second. The room slowly emptied, not with arguments, but with shame. Women avoided my eyes as they left. Some whispered apologies. Some said nothing at all. My daughter-in-law remained standing, alone. Her shoulders, once so confident, now looked heavy, small. When the door finally closed, she turned toward me. Her voice was lower, uncertain. I didn't know, she said. I thought everyone agreed to erase me. I looked at her carefully. At 62, I had learned to recognize truth and desperation. This house made you brave, I said softly, but it also made you forget gratitude. Her eyes filled with tears. I was scared, she whispered. I didn't want to lose security. Security built on someone else's sacrifice never lasts. She stepped closer, hesitating. I went too far, she said. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't erase humiliation. It only acknowledges it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't celebrate. Because real karma isn't loud. It's quiet understanding. I don't want revenge, I said. I want respect. She nodded, wiping her face. For the first time, she looked at me not as an obstacle, but as a woman she had underestimated. That night, I slept peacefully, not because everything was fixed, but because balance had returned. And karma, it didn't punish her with loss. It punished her with awareness. Sometimes, that's the hardest lesson of all. The house felt different after that day. Not lighter, but honest. Walls no longer whispered. Doors no longer closed suddenly. At 62, I woke up with a strange calm. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a guest in my own life. My daughter-in-law kept her distance now. Not out of fear, but out of awareness. Respect changes the way people walk around you. I didn't throw her out. I didn't punish her. Because justice isn't about power. It's about balance. I chose dignity over revenge. That choice taught everyone something, including me. Silence had once protected them, but when chosen wisely, it protected me instead. I learned a truth many women learn too late. Giving doesn't make you small. Giving without boundaries does. Love should never cost your self-respect. Family should never demand your erasure. As I sat in the living room that evening, sunlight touching the walls I built, I realized something important. Strength isn't shouting. It isn't slapping back. Strength is knowing when to speak, and when to let truth speak for you. If I had one lesson to leave behind, it would be this. Kindness is powerful, but only when paired with courage. And now, I ask you, if you were in my place, would you stay silent for family peace, or speak up for your dignity?